After the four N15s had been approved by the board of directors, and with Damien and Sophie now being able to take a step back and not doing the express runs anymore, Dennis was both envious and angry when he heard that they were still going to be doing passenger work, and thought and hoped they'd get the same treatment as him. He wasn't shy about saying what he thought, and even said it to Lord Inmond and the board, who were all shocked, which made his position worse. So he was placed on the maintenance train. King Leo mocked him for it immensely. Oi! Watch your mouth, you.
So, in other words, you're perfect for the job.
I'm not suitable for scrap. This sort of work is more for those failies at Esterlock.
Talk smack about Laura and Adam, and you'll be scrap.
Is that a threat?
I'll make it a threat.
Ugh, enough, the pair of you.
Sophie, a Wainwright D440 class, had rolled out from the back of the sheds. She had the morning off, but she had heard every word.
White, you should know better than to get into arguments. And Dennis, you shouldn't go around being a right prat.
The engines looked forward to seeing a Great Western churchward tender backing down into the sheds, and soon with the sight of a 4-3 XX Mogul.
What's so important about maintenance anyway? It's long and time-consuming.
Well, for a start, keeps the line open and running.
And you're saying it couldn't be done without us there?
Well, how else are they meant to move their equipment? That, and they use us to test it afterwards. The men put a lot more effort into it than keeping the line running than what you do in a week.
See, as much as I hate to say it, I'm going to have to agree with Dennis here.
Everyone fell silent and shot a surprising look at the N15. You're talking out of your tender?
No, not in the slightest. Maintenance is time-consuming and tedious.
I just explained it, you egotistical sod.
Aled could tell it was going to carry on, so he decided to back down. The argument soon went back to Leo and Dennis going at each other, and it wasn't until the shedmaster came over and silenced the whole conversation and the pair of them went off. Aled had been rostered onto the maintenance train after Dennis's outburst this morning, and he had been put onto stock collecting. Aled sat on the bridge outside Tailbridge, while the men and Mr. Edmores, who were overlooking the operation, were working rather quickly.
All right, lads. Tea break.
Already? Blimey, this is going quickly.
That's one way of putting it, Elid.
Aled grinned to himself as Mr. Edmores walked away, but it was soon ruined when he heard Leo's whistle.
Oh, Miss and Bud Brunel, here we go.
Having fun, are we, Alan? Treasured you old Grump. It's boring work.
Not in the slightest.
Aled just frowned. He wasn't in a good mood now, but sighed as the men continued with their work. By late afternoon, the maintenance train had gotten to the outside of Globalite, and Aled was having a nap while the men were sorting the points towards the station. The signals were set at red, but that didn't stop who was coming.
Oh, bloody hell. Oh, is that Leo?
He's early.
It was. He was hauling a fast freight and wasn't paying any attention, and went past the signal.
Hey, Leo, stop!
What the hell? Oh, dear God, stop!
But it was too late. King Leo came off the rails and slid down the bank and sat on his side, groaning dramatically. Aled looked on in anger.
You absolute twat! Don't you try and pin this on me or the lads. You weren't looking where you were going.
King Leo looked furious, and the two men went back at each other until Laura, the railway's other E2, came up to help clear up the mess. But the arguing didn't stop there. Leo had been moved and placed on one of the sidings outside of the sheds at Sutton earlier so that the men could look over and assess him. And since they had left long before Aled got home, the two of them were at each other's funnels, and were keeping the rest of the engines awake. Sophie had left half an hour ago, and it seemed like she wasn't coming back that night.
Like I said this morning, maintenance takes too long to carry out, and that's what's happened earlier. You and the men were working too slow.
We were working ahead of schedule, and if you weren't looking where you were going when by the time you had already passed the flags and proceeded to speed onto the bit of track that was missing a piece of rail on one side and was still suspended, which is why you flipped over and went down the bank. Besides, you didn't have the right of way either. You scheduled that Brandon was coming through before you.
Balderdash.
And of course the Grump tries to blame facts with rubbish. Take my advice, Alid, and admit defeat.
I won't admit anything to you, Grunt. I'm honest, but nothing but honest. And Mr. Edwards and his team are doing all their help to maintain the rails that we run on. If it weren't for him, we'd be having a lot more events such as today.
Tim, please do something. I need to be up early tomorrow.
I'd rather not get involved here. I can't stop them.
Of course, leave it to the Westerner to talk absolute
Enough!
The engines were all startled and looked towards the yard exit to see Ellie, who was with Damien, and a very tired Sophie. All three looked furious.
I leave for Eastleigh for a few days and return to find that the yard is in a mess, and poor Sophie has been trying to keep the peace in my absence. Alid, I expected better from you, as you, Leo and Dennis. The pair of you are wrong. Maintenance is vital to the running of a railway. If we didn't have it at all, then there'll be incidents and haltings of services left, right, and centre.
Pah! In my experience, you dog, it's always been nothing but a big issue. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm going to find somewhere else to sleep tonight to get some peace.
Even though you were the one who started this ordeal.
Alid somewhat accepted defeat and rolled into the back of the sheds. Leo smirked, thinking he'd won, but he disappeared right away as Ellie shot him a glare. Finally, Damien and Sophie were the last two awake.
I don't know how you do it, Damien. I try, but it doesn't seem to have the same effect.
Oh, trust me, I was the same as you a few years ago. Give it time, and you'll do well.
Damien rolled into the sheds, and Sophie, after thinking for a bit, followed a while later. The next few days were rather peaceful. Leo had been sent off to Brighton Works. Alid carried on with the maintenance trains. But at every opportunity, Dennis would pass by hissing steam rudely. But by Saturday, where it had been a week since Leo's derailment, Alid and the men were outside of Havenfield, fixing the points leading to the yards. They were just about to move into the yard itself and out of the way when Brandon arrived on the other line.
Afternoon, Leo. What's up?
Hey, Brandon. Nothing much. Just waiting to go off for the pylon to collect some new rails in a bit.
Ah, well, we all have to do something, eh?
Yeah. Hold on. Now, Dennis.
Well, I don't think we know anyone else with a loud whining whistle like that.
It was Dennis. He was running bunker first with a mixed goods and going at a rather steady pace. But the signal was red and he wasn't stopping. The driver then went frantic. And the signalman saw this at the last second and switched the points right. As his back went one way, his front went the other way. And with a loud crack, he landed onto the ballast and sat between the rails. Dennis's crew got down and started arguing with him, and Brandon had to leave, which left Alid in the yards.
Oh, for God's sake, he won't learn, will he?
Ah, well. We'd better set things right, shouldn't we, Mr. Edmores?
Indeed. Richard, get that crane started and let's get this engine back on the rails.
That's the spirit, lads.
Mr. Edmores and the gang set to work right away, and in no time Dennis was back on the rails. But as he had broken his rear axle guarding his left side, he had to be left off the rails and off the ground, and Alec took his train on from there and came back a while later with a flatbed and took Dennis to the Bylon Cross engine works, which were rather small and used for minor things. That night, Alec returned to the sheds to find Lord Inmond waiting, and that King Leo had returned.
Well, Alid, you have done well these past few weeks, and after today you've made me proud. A fine piece of work. After your hard work, you'll be taken for a new coat of paint, and Leo, has agreed to take over the maintenance trains for the duration.
Alid looked at Leo, who looked away. After Lord Inmond said a few more things, he left, and Alid was left inside the sheds, where there was a lot of congratulating for Alid's work, and soon after it died down, there was a bit of silence until King Leo broke it.
Could I say a few things? Not going to be bashing Alid anymore, are you? No, nothing of the sort. I just wanted to apologise. When I was in Brighton, I realised that I was being rather stuck-up and rude, and seeing after the amount of effort and work you and the men put into maintaining the line is commendable. And I, in a way, respect you, and hope that we can make amendments.
You scamp! You're a lot better than a lot of engines I've met over the years. I can see potential in you, Leo. You work hard, and you'll definitely go far.
Well, this is spectacular, isn't it?
Well done, you two.
Indeed. Well done, Leo.
The two engines smiled, and everyone was relieved. The Great Western Grump had made a friend out of the king. In the corner of the sheds, Damien and Sophie sat smiling.
Looks like your wisdom worked after all, Sophie. What did I tell you?
Well, I have you to thank for that. And Eleanor for helping out too.
Indeed. Like I said, it'll take time and you'll become a fine role model for the younger engines. Just you wait.
Damien smiled, but it soon left as a thought came across his mind. He had overheard a conversation between Mr. Hawley, the company chairman, and Lord Inmond about possibly replacing an older engine, and the only two that he could majorly think about were Cassie and Brandon, as they were built in 1875. But he also knew that Colin, Gabriel and Dennis were also fairly old too, being around since 1883 to 85. He couldn't help but think that, after Lord Inman recently said modernising the railway, he knew that the fleet consisted of a lot of smaller and older engines. All of this concerned the Greyhound, as he wasn't sure of what to believe. But everyone started laughing and joking, so he decided to leave it for now and join in, and decided to speak to Lord Inmond about his concerns tomorrow.
I'm sorry for dragging you away to speak to you, sir. There's no problem with that, Damien. Besides, I needed to get outside anyways. Been spending too much time in that office lately with signing contracts and whatnot. But what's the problem? Your driver sounded rather concerned. Is everything alright? Well, sir, if I'm completely honest, sir... No, and excuse my intrusion of it, but I overheard you and Mr. Hawley talking about replacements, and it got me a bit concerned about a few of the engines. But if I'm completely honest, I feel like I've got the wrong side of the story. Well, not even the whole of it either. Honestly, Damien, you're both right and wrong. Yes, we are thinking of replacing someone, and that is Cassie. But, as station pilot, I've noticed her and Amy have been getting rather overworked recently, and I feel that Cassie needs a bit of a steadier pace, which is why I thought of sending her to work with Colin on the Templeton branch, and also the possibility of getting rid of Dennis. Well, I've expected this for some time, honestly. But what or who will replace Cassie, sir? Well, I feel it's best to give Alid and Elliot a friendly reminder of home.